everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Psych Talk, the podcast where we explore mental health, human behavior, and the psychology behind our thoughts, feelings, and actions. Today, we're talking about a theoretical orientation or therapy approach called Solution Focused Brief Therapy, or SFBT for short. So, unlike many different therapeutic models that explore deep childhood wounds, trauma, or analyze your past, SFBT is about one thing: solutions. So, it's about your strengths and the times that you have succeeded, and even when life was incredibly difficult. And so, SFBT is built on the belief that talking endlessly about your problems won't necessarily make them go away. That doesn't mean that the problem is not real, it just means that there is focus shift. And so instead of asking ourselves what went wrong, we ask, when did things go right? Even just a little bit. And how did we actually do that? How did we go through that traumatic moment? How did we cope with that? And so it's not about denying pain or pretending that everything is fine, but it's about uncovering our own tools, strengths, and coping strategies. And so many clients talk in absolutes, right? You might hear someone say, "Oh, I get drunk every night. I always have." Or "I smoke weed every day and I always have." I always drink coffee before I drink water. And so the word always can trap people. But in SFBT, we gently challenge that by asking, so there was never even one time that you did not get drunk at night? Or was there ever one time that you drank water before coffee? And if they say, well, maybe, there was that one time when my mom came to visit, and the night I didn't want to drink in front of her. And so that is the exception that we were trying to find. And then we ask, tell me more about that visit. And they might say, well, again, I didn't want her to worry. So instead of drinking alcohol, I drank coffee instead, or I drank coffee all day to make me feel something rather than drinking alcohol. And then now the job of the therapist is to bring them back to that exception and ask them, well, that day you didn't drink alcohol, so that's an accomplishment, right? And so what is it that you did differently that day? What helped you suppress the urge? And so as we uncover all of the times, the exception times where they did not drink, when they did not drink or did not get high, we can unfold the techniques that they use to actually cope and stay sober. And so, and this can be applied to any problem that you have in life, whether you want to eat less or eat more protein or sleep more hours or trying to get more hours of sleep. So think about that one night or that one day that you were actually able to do that. Well, how did you do that? That will be your treatment plan. You basically are creating a treatment plan for yourself. And you discover that you actually have succeeded in the past, even if it was just one day or a week, or even if it was a long time ago. You have done it before, so you can do it again. And so that is what we mean by focusing on the solution instead of the problem, because we're looking at the times that we have succeeded rather than the times where we were sad or all the problems that we have in life, etc. And so asking a client or asking yourself, okay, when was a moment in my life where I actually succeeded? That is called the exception question, because there's always an exception when you actually did not drink, did not smoke, got enough hours of sleep at night. In SFBT, we also ask miracle questions. And what we ask is, suppose tonight, while you're sleeping, a miracle happens. And so when you wake up tomorrow, your problem is completely gone. What is the very first thing that you'd notice? And so this future focus question allows clients to imagine life without the struggle. And often they create their own blueprint for healing. And so a client might say, well, when I wake up, I wouldn't reach for alcohol. I'd go make a coffee. I'd actually look forward to the day. I will take my dog for a walk. I will call my friends. And so right there, they have written, again, their own treatment plan. Get coffee, go for a walk, call someone, do something enjoyable, reconnect. And we also have scaling questions in SFBT. So you ask the client to rate something on a scale from 0 to 10. So for example, on a scale from 0 to 10, how bad is your addiction today? And if they say, for example, oh, well, it's a 9, you ask, so what's keeping it from being a 10? And they might pause and say, well, I still see my kids sometimes. And you can ask, oh, okay, that's interesting. So the court and your ex-wife or ex-boyfriend is still allowing you to see your kids. And they might say, well, yeah, because when I'm with them, I don't drink. And so now we're getting somewhere. We have found what is working. And that little thread of hope, that area of self-control, and basically we can start to pull on the thread. Because if their addiction is not a 10, but it's a 9, well, that means that there is something good that they're doing. So there is hope. Then we have coping questions. So sometimes people feel hopeless and they might say, my life is a mess and I'm barely functioning. And the therapist might ask, well, how have you been coping with all of that? You're here in therapy, which is something, right? That says something about you. And they might respond, well, yeah, I guess I still have hope. And great. So now we explore that. And you ask, tell me more about that hope. Where does it come from? What's kept you going? And suddenly, instead of spiraling, they're reflecting on resilience. And they start seeing themselves not as a failure, but as someone who keeps showing up. And now I want to go back to the exception questions in other areas. So let's say someone can't remember a single day they did not relapse. Well, then we can ask, okay, let's shift gears. Has there been a time in your life when you did something hard and you were proud of yourself? And they might say, well, yeah, maybe when I was little, I did this really hard thing. I constructed, 1,000 pieces of a puzzle, or I did this big Lego, or whatever it was, right? I pushed through and I did it, and it was very hard. And then you might ask, well, tell me how you got through that. What strengths did you use? And because they've done hard things before, they can do hard things again. And who knows, maybe it was something else. Maybe they went through a hard time in their families. Maybe their parents got a divorce, but they knew how to cope, and that was very hard for them. And so we talk about that. How did you go through that? What strengths did you use? And so the therapist also is very encouraging, and it kind of gives compliments to the client whenever they accomplish something, or whenever there's something positive. You reinforce that and you say, oh my gosh, that is so great. In obviously not in a fake way, but in a way that you can acknowledge their effort and strength. And so you can say, I really admire how you have kept going even when you felt like giving up. And so these moments help reveal the client's self-image. And the beauty about solution focused brief therapy is that it focuses on strengths and not pathology. And it's about encouragement. And it's about seeing the client through a strength based lens and not a pathological one. Let me give you another example. So let's say you have a couple coming in, right? And they're talking about how they're always fighting and everything is a mess and etc., etc. So you might ask the couple, when don't you fight? And that question instantly shifts the conversation. So you're not ignoring the problems, you're looking for the sunlight in the storm. So then they start talking, well, maybe we don't fight when we work out together, or when we're cooking, or when we're having dinner. And you ask, okay, how does it look like? What does it keep you from fighting? Why don't you fight in those moments? Oh, well, because I don't know, we're doing an activity together and we're working together towards something. And then you kind of explore that. You might also ask questions like, oh, why did you get married in the first place? And each other can say, their answer can be different, but they can say something like, oh, well, I really liked her personality, I really liked the way she cared for others and her honesty, etc., etc. And you can also ask questions like, what does a good day between you two look like? And when you don't fight, what is happening differently? And so those answers are the beginning of change. So instead of asking, when do you relapse? You ask, when do you not relapse? Instead of asking, why are you failing? You ask, when you have succeeded, even a little bit. And instead of asking, why are you still drinking? You can ask, what helped you stay sober that one day? And solution-focused brief therapy is very different from other theoretical orientation, like, for example, CBT, because for CBT, we will actually look at the time where the client has relapsed, and we will look at the antecedent. So we will look at what happened before the relapse, and then we will explore the behavior, and then the consequence of that relapsing. So we're looking at the problem, we're not looking at the solution. And obviously, solution-focused brief therapy is considered like a short type of therapy, like a 6-week type of thing, and it can lead to many changes. Whereas something like CBT or psychodynamic, they're more, they are a little bit longer, and that's why it's called solution-focused brief therapy. And it reminds people that they're not broken, they're resourceful, and they have already survived, already endured, and now they're learning how to build a different future by noticing when things actually worked, even for a moment or a short period of time. And maybe that's all we need sometimes, a little shift and a new question and a reminder that we're capable of change. And so, this is the end of the episode. Thank you for tuning in. And if this episode spoke to you, consider sharing it with someone who might need, a little hope for the day. And until next time, thank you.